Well, hey there everybody. I guess today we're going to give you a quick walk around of my 68 Dodge D100 Sweptline short bed pickup. Right, Duff? You love riding in this thing, don't you? Anyway, we call this one the King. For obvious reasons, it's Petty Blue and was probably owned by the King, Richard Petty, himself at one point. So, anyway, saw this thing on Facebook Marketplace. It was pretty rough shape. Not that it's much better now, but that's where I found it. Found it in downtown Fargo, of all places. And the guy's price was a little bit high, so I went there and checked it out. And I don't think anybody had really went and looked at it because he was so high in his price. So I hit him with an offer of what I thought it was worth. I don't know what I gave him, $1,000 or $1,500. But anyway, I'll show you what it looked like when I started. I put these wheels on and put a different seat in it. I ended up putting a different engine in it because the other Slant 6 had some mechanical issues. Cut the corners of the bumper off. But the biggest thing with this thing was that it was just covered in this tan primer paint. Here you can see on the inside of the box. It's just covered in that and it looked hideous. So I got some stuff called Goof off, graffiti remover. This stuff's awesome. You take and you spray it on there. You crack a cold one, walk away, come back 30 seconds later and wipe that area off. You don't want to let it sit too long because it gets down into the base coat or down into the primer as far as you want it to go. But you got to let it sit long enough so that it kind of does its thing, and then you take a little bit of water. I used a Scotch pad, and I probably could buff it out and get a little bit better. Obviously, I didn't do the inside of the box, but give you kind of a walk around here what we got. So this thing had an aftermarket rear bumper on it. It was caved in like they all are, and it obviously caused that corner to rot out a little bit more than it probably should have. So I cut those off because they're kind of hideous, and I thought I would maybe try to bang something out and fill in there. Obviously, I haven't gotten that far. I've had this thing for about 2 years. I'd really like to lower it, but with that straight axle under there, the steering geometry is kind of screwy, so I haven't got that far. The brakes were absolutely shot, so I put all new brakes, drums, wheel cylinders, shoes, brake hoses, master cylinder, everything. And this thing stops pretty good. Needs some steering parts, but it actually drives pretty respectable. It's got a ton of rot though in like really strange spots, but I think it's pretty common to Mopars. I'm gonna do the body walk around here first. There you can see a bunch there. They made these things from like 61 to 71 or something like that. They made them for quite a stretch, but anyway, they all kind of stayed the same. There was a few small changes, the dash, the grill, some of that stuff. I think the older ones had like great big headlights in there. The hood I think had been replaced at one time. That's why the color didn't quite match. Same with this fender. I think it was this dark blue originally, and then the Petty Blue was over it, and then there was black in there at one time. Somebody did some shady body work there. There again, you can see that I haven't got that color off. Obviously, I don't really love those mirrors. I'd like to find some originals. The box is actually the best part. It'll hold water. Crazy. But the floors and the rocker, that's just scabbed in there. You can see some type of aluminum. The floors, they are nice. Wood. I think there was a bunch of spray foam in one of these corners. Yeah, you can see it right there. Pretty ugly. And then the wiring leaves a lot to be desired on this thing. It's got the old Slant 6 leaning tower of power with the 4-speed behind it. It actually gets up and goes pretty good. Compared to the 235 and White Lightning, it would smoke that thing and gets twice the economy. Like I said, the seat was shot, so I put this, about an 88 to 94 regular cab seat in it, GM seat. These things hold up really well. They come in a handful of different colors. They're pretty reasonable to pick up. I think I gave like $50 for this one. It's obviously not perfect, but for this pickup, it's great. I like that folding armrest option. Some of them do have headrests, which I don't really care for, but beggars can't be choosers. I do have a different gauge cluster for it because obviously the glass is broke out. And I don't think any of the gauges work on it. They did have an aftermarket oil gauge in it, but I unhooked that because it had that cheesy plastic line on there. But the doors open and close really nice for what it is. Like I said, it had stock steel wheels, like 15-inch later Dodge Dakota wheels or something like that. I had these 16 and 17-inch Torq Thrust 2s, I believe, laying around, and new Goodyear tires. So threw those on there, really changed the look of this thing along with cleaning up the paint. These hoods are kind of two-man job, but let's see if we can get her one-handed down here. There we go. So there it is, the leaning tower of power. Like I said, the first one was kind of on its way out, so I picked this one up out of a 76 short box two-wheel drive, dropped in there. It was all painted up, so it had a bunch of new parts, so I figured it was in good shape, and I fired it up before I stuck it in here. I did put the electronic ignition off that later pickup in here. I got a little bit of wiring to clean up, but I did use the earlier carburetor. It was behind an automatic, so I had to swap the oil pan and the starter and just a bunch of miserable things that you wouldn't think you'd have to swap in order to go from an automatic to a manual, but thanks for that, Mopar. And then along with the oil pan, I had to change the dipstick tube. The exhaust and intake manifold I left on the engine. It's got a hydraulic clutch that does like to leak down a little bit. It leaked down over winter before I brought her in here now. What else? I got to do a lot of cleaning up on the wiring. It was just a nightmare when I started, and it didn't help adding that electronic ignition, so the battery cables are terrible. I did improvise a little bit of a battery hold down. It was better than nothing that was there. I need to replace the battery cables. These just irritate me. Somebody put the old speed holes in the air cleaner. Gives her that extra horsepower and economy. These things were super crude underneath, but they're great to work on. All kinds of room. The hood's open like almost vertical, so it's really out of the way. You can set all your tools just everywhere. They do rot out in weird spots, like I was telling you. And you can wash your clothes when it's broke down on the side of the road. It's just it's a really fun pickup to drive. Like I said, I'm probably into it for, I mean, minus the wheels and tires, I probably have, you know, $1,750, maybe $2,000 into it. The exhaust is pretty cobbly, but it's not too terribly loud. Like I said, there's a little bit of rust back there I'd like to fix. The mirrors, the backup lights don't match, some stuff like that, that if I get real crazy, maybe I'll attempt to. Let's see if she'll fire off. Oh yeah, and there's the bell housing mounts. Note to self, if you ever take one of these out, make sure you install those before you set the bell housing back in place, because you have to pull the engine out to get them back in there. If you know how to set those back in there without pulling the engine and bell housing, let me know, because I'm not looking forward to doing that. This thing just purrs when she runs. Carburetor needs a little bit of work, but yeah, I'm definitely a fan of the old leaning tower of power. All right, that's about all I got on the King, the 68 Dodge D100. Thanks everybody for watching. Duffy and I are gonna go to work. Big stretch.